Hello, good morning. Well, let's see who's in town. Lots of people. Hello, this is Kenny Tan. Welcome to the Real Beast Academy's weekly sales training, aka Centermac weekly sales training. And we got four exciting topics today for you guys. Are you guys ready? Well, let me see. Where is my comment section? Oh, right here. Okay. Well, my comment is just a second. Let's see who's here. Okay, we got Nick, Johnny, Lily, Howard, and Julia Feng Jiao, Mello, Hua, Andrew, Carey, Wayne, Nicole, Elaine, Henry, Changping, Justin, Maggie, Maria, Jenny, Amy, Joanna, Nick. All right, guys, everybody. As you know, I'm about. Okay, I wouldn't mind telling you this now because I have my surgery scheduled already. I'm going for my cataract surgery on September the 7th, so I may need a couple of weeks of recovery time. Hopefully, it's a short recovery. Okay, so that's why when you see me looking at the screen, I have to look at it very closely. Okay, and there's a reason for that. Uh, I have to get one eye done first and then the second eye done in October. And then hopefully I'm going to have 20/20 vision after that. I don't have to look at the screen so closely. All right, let's see. Anybody else in town? All right, okay. All right, Liu Yong and Lisa. All right, okay. So the four topics today are, let me go to screen number 3. Okay, now, all right. I need to share screen with you guys, don't I? No, actually, you can see whatever I'm seeing on the screen right now, correct? If you are not able to see it, say something. Hey, good morning, TM. Okay, the four topics for today are how to create personal power. Probably this is something foreign to many people. Uh, if you have that, you have it. If you don't have it, you probably don't know how to create it. So let's learn how to create it so you can build trust in people. I'll share a couple of stories with you, then you know how important is it to have that personal power. Okay. Second thing we're going to talk about is when is it legal to call or text message? Certainly, you don't want to get a $43,000 fine from the FTC, right? So let's all learn what are the rules and do it legally and still be able to solicit for business. And the third thing we're going to learn today is how to win friends and influence people. Now, we're going to finish the entire book, that's for sure. We're on to rule number 8 today. Okay, so each week we're going to learn a new rule. Number 4 is opportunity zone. I still want to talk a little bit about it because last time we really did not cover very much. All right, let's move on to the next page, the next slide. How to create personal power so we can build trust in people to get listing signed. I, as you know, hello Selena, how are you? Well, you figure out a way to attend the training. Well, that's good. Okay. Let me give you an example first, then you can appreciate uh, the power of personal power. Okay, a few years ago, when I was still going to Mike Ferry's production retreat and the superstar retreat, I remember during the superstar retreat, I got a text message or email from Lisa. She told me that one of one of the people that attended my Chinese seminars actually sent us an email asking to speak to me about a 1031 question. Okay, at that time I was attending the superstar retreat, during the summer, and she told me that she was thinking about selling one of her properties that was under construction. It was actually a second home that she owned. So it was, or it could be, an investment property that might qualify for 1031 exchange. So she wanted to find out, how she could accomplish it. So we kind of went through everything. And then at that time, I got real interested in getting her listing, in doing the listing for her. So I boldly asked her, I said, would you consider letting me list your property? And I was at the superstar retreat. Okay. And that was a pretty big listing. The property was about $3.5 million. So I was talking to her and she said, yeah, I would. Okay. So that was about when I started to use my favorite script. Okay, that was even before I started making cold calls. I started any prospecting calls, but I started using my favorite script. I really followed the script to the T, pretty much. Although I did not do a full listing presentation, but even though I was at the superstar retreat, I quit the superstar retreat, took a flight to San Jose, and met her one evening. Hello, Carrie. Hello, Star. And then I met her one evening at her home. I still remember. It was everything was kind of last minute. I booked the flight. It's like today I'm talking to her, and then the next day I'm already there in San Jose. I remember it was Leo. Leo Zhang picked me up. And at that time, uh, he picked me up on one evening. We made an appointment. I think that was an 8 p.m. appointment. We went there, and I had Leo prepare some CMA for me. So I got my CMA, but I did not do a full listing presentation. I went there. I remember I used my favorite script. My favorite script is really till this day. You know, if you start getting some listings because you use the script, then you will start believing in that script. It was a powerful script. Okay. And Leo was there, and there were three questions in the script. As you know, if you've been using my favorite script, there are three questions in the script that some people wouldn't even ask. You know, sometimes we're afraid of asking certain questions because we're afraid of knowing what the answer is. Okay, what are the three questions? I remember, I only remember two. I forgot the last one. But the two that I still remember is first question, the first one I remember is, do you still have to sell your home? Okay. Now, why is it that some people are afraid to ask that question? Because I think if you bring yourself to asking that question and exude that personal power, you're more likely to get the listing. If you're not afraid of asking questions like that, do you still have to sell your home? Now, which it sounds like it's an obvious question, right? And yet you're there, first time meeting that person, you're shaking hand with that person. After you shook hand with person, you sat down. So we sat down. And if I'm not mistaken, that was the first time ever I used my ferry script. And I asked her, do you still have to sell your home? Now, some people might be afraid of asking that question because they're afraid of asking answer like, no, I changed my mind. You see, because when we're there, we are afraid of not getting the listing. So much so that, we are afraid of asking question like this. Do you still have to sell your home? Asking question like that helps exude your personal power because if you have the gut to ask question like that, I remember after we got the listing signed, yeah, Leo was saying, Kenny, I couldn't believe you ask her that question. I wouldn't even begin to dare to ask that question. I say, yeah, I asked that question. I follow my fairy script. Okay. So do you still have to sell your home? So the words that we use, it's important. Okay, so follow my very script. Some of the questions that are in the script are very good questions because if you have the gut to ask it and ask it with a lot of confidence, it really helps people see in the personal power that you have in you. Now, what does personal power mean? It means the ability to control a situation. A person that has the ability to control a situation is more likely than one who's not able to control a situation because if you don't have the ability to control a situation, it means you lack personal power. Okay, so do you still have to sell your home? And a more difficult one for some people wouldn't even begin to ask it, especially the newer agents. They won't even be, they're probably too afraid to ask the next question that I'm going to say to you. Would you like me to list your home? Okay. Would you like me to list your home? It's a simple question and it's posed at the very beginning. I can't remember what the first question is. I totally forgot now. Oh, actually, I remember the third question now. And many people still are afraid to ask this third question. Third question was, do you want to price your home to sell or do you want to price it to sell 3 or 6 months from now? Which seems like a rhetorical question, right? But it is in the script. So these are the three questions that a lot of people are afraid to ask. But if you're the type who have personal power, you're not afraid to ask these questions because all three questions will help exude your personal power. Okay. You sound so professional when you ask it too. Do you want to price it to sell now? Or do you want to price it to sell 3 months from now? Or is it okay if the property sits on the market 3 to 6 months from now? Obviously, you're going to get the first answer, right? Okay. But there are people who are still afraid to ask this question. So the words we use, okay. Now, when the words we use and the questions we ask are related, usually as salespeople, we ask questions. You see, good salespeople, they, they, they ask questions. To sell is not to tell. To sell is to ask questions. And the strength in your voice too. All those guys that have strong personal power, you can feel the strength in their voice. When I go with, Michael Yu is a very good example. I mean, he since the beginning, since day one, he's already gotten the strength in his voice. When you talk with, with conviction and firmness in your voice. That's how you build personal power. And sometimes when we make cold calls, we practice our script well, and we follow the basic principles, the ones that I just mentioned earlier, we're more likely to get a positive response from the other person. And then they'll give us we're more likely to get appointments than not getting appointments. Usually we get appointments. Okay. Another situation where you may be able to exude your personal power is when you make your pre-qualification call. Uh, for a while, even when I started using my very script, I have some reservation. I had some reservation about making pre-qualification calls. So when you make the initial phone call, the purpose is to get an appointment, right? So before you go for the appointment, you're supposed to pre-qualify your prospect. Well, what's the reason? What are the reasons you want to pre-qualify your prospect? Well, the number one reason is that you don't want to waste your time on some sellers who are not pre-qualified. Well, what would be the reasons that might cause a seller not to be qualified? Well, number one is, does that person have title? So when you make the pre-qualification phone calls, shouldn't you have as one of the questions concerning whether or not the seller is on title? Now, one of the questions on the script might be, will all the decision makers be there when I see you tonight? Because you don't want to go there and the person that is sitting in front of you is not a decision maker, right? So it's important because you're talking to that guy or this person, and then when you show up, it has happened to me before. I'm sharing this with you. And then you realize, and then you say, oh, I should have pre-qualified this person. Had I pre-qualified this person, I wouldn't be driving an hour to see this person and realizing that this person is the sister of the owner. Now, if this person is the sister of the owner, this person is obviously not on title. Then why are you talking to this person unless this person is a decision maker? It is doubtful that this person is a decision maker, although it is possible because this person may be the actual owner. The sister, for convenience, maybe just put on title. It's possible, but that's for you to explore and find out. And this is something that you would do when you make the pre-qualification call. Okay. Now, when you there's another question that is on the pre-qualification call that will determine if you're the type that has that personal power. That question is, when I see you, are you prepared to sign with me if what I say makes sense to you? That's another question. And often we are afraid to ask this question because we're afraid of the answer. No, actually, very good. It's a very good question because it helps prepare this person mentally that you are there to sign a listing. Now, if you get a response that says something like, oh, you know what, I would still want to interview other agents. Well, you get a question like that, then you can anticipate that perhaps when you show up, this person may not be ready to sign with you because after he or she interviews you, he or she is going to interview another agent. However, should you still go for the appointment or should you just, oh, you know what, why don't you go ahead and interview other agents and then interview me last? That's a strategy, but it is a pretty risky strategy because say there are some really good and strong agents who has the personal power. They're gonna get the listing signed before your appointment, so you risk that. Okay, so now if you get a response like that, depends on how much you like about that, how much you like that property. You may decide to just kind of pass on it simply because he or she is not ready to sign with you, would not be ready to sign with you, even if you make a strong listing presentation. Okay, would you rather just kind of wait until you're the last one? Maybe, maybe not. It has happened to me before. One time I had a listing in Walnut Creek, and the lady and I I mean, we hit it off so well. I called her like on Friday. Saturday, I took a morning flight from Southern California to Northern California, and then I went to see her. And I wish I had scheduled an earlier appointment because we hit it off so well. I thought I was going to be able to sign the listing. Now, I did not pre qualify her though. I could have pre qualified her on the phone. I could have asked her, "Are you planning to list? Are you planning to interview more than one agent?" That's one of the pre qualification question. Okay. Now, why are we afraid to ask that question? Because sometimes we're afraid to know the answer, because we're afraid that the person might tell us, "Oh yeah, I'm going to interview more than one agent." Well, if you have personal power, you should not be afraid to ask this type of questions. Ask every single question that's on the script. Just follow the script to the T. Okay. Uh, and certainly the strength of your voice is important. Okay. If you don't know what it takes in terms of the strength of your voice, just listen to Michael Yu, listen to Elizabeth Wu, listen to Judy Xue. They are all, I mean, the kind, the strength in their voice. Okay, it's there. It is something that you can practice, though. Okay, all right. So much about personal power. This is only part one of personal power. Part two will be coming up in future training. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next topic. When is it legal to call or text? I've been, I don't like texting people. Texting is not my style. But for some of you agents who don't want to make phone calls because either that's not your style or you're too afraid to make phone calls, maybe you felt it's safer to send text messages than to make phone calls. But first of all, I want to tell you that the rules are more liberal for making phone calls than for making cold text messages. You can call a person. Well, number one, if this person is not on the national do not call list, okay, you should still make the phone calls between the hours of 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. and not beyond those hours. Okay, it is not legal to make sales calls before 8 or after 9. If you call between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m., all right, then you are fine. Now, why do I say that? Some people ask, well, if a person is on the do not call list, can I call that person? Sure, you can. Just don't make interstate calls. Even if the person is on the national do not call list, the only type of sales calls that are or solicitation calls that are prohibited under the national do not call list is the interstate call. So if the person is on the national do not call list, but if you're making calls within California, it's not an interstate call. So what if this person is not, it's on the national do not call list? It is still okay. Now, going back to text message law is a little different though. Legally, you cannot send a text messages with the intention to sell something to the other person until you have gotten a prior consent from that person. How do you get prior consent? Some people are asking, that person don't even know me. How can I get prior consent? Well, the answer is you can get prior consent several ways. For example, if you have a website, and you're somehow able to capture the person's telephone number. For example, if the person gives you the text message, for example, on your website, you may have a message that says, well, if you're interested in getting a property evaluation for your house, please send me a text message or please provide your phone number or email. Now, providing an email without phone number does not give you consent to send text message. It only gives you consent to send emails. So you certainly want to get the phone number, even from your website. So, the input form, if they provide you their phone number in response to your solicitation, but that's on your website though. So it's nothing against the law to solicit on your website because it's not cold calling, it's not cold texting. So on your website, you ask for their phone number and they give it to you in response to your solicitation to give them a property evaluation, and then you go ahead and send them the text message. That's okay. That's 100% legal because you already got their consent. Okay. Now, what if some of you want to send text messages? It's completely cold because there is no prior consent. Well, first of all, your first text message could be an attempt to get consent. That's okay. For example, if you send a text message, uh, you need to have the ability for people to opt in or opt out. If your first initial text message is not to sell anything, but just to ask this person if he or she is interested in a property valuation. If he's interested, he's supposed to type in a certain opt-in code. If he opts in, great, you already got the consent. Then you can go ahead, yeah, okay. And then in your invitation, you're supposed to state how frequently would you give him the property update or whatever. Okay, how frequently you're going to send this type of text message. And then they should be allowed to opt out. Okay, then it's okay to do that if it's just for the purpose of getting consent. Okay, but you cannot sell anything via text messages without prior consent. That is not legal. So the bottom line is, why don't you try cold calling? It's safer to cold call than to cold text. Okay. Uh, Now, what is this internal do not call list? Let's say, for example, you call this person. This person is not on the national do not call list, but then he said, from today onwards, I do not want to receive any more phone calls from you. Why don't you put me on your do not call list? Now you have to honor that request. See, when you cold call people, if you use like Arch Agent, you can actually uh, convert the phone number to an internal do not call phone number so that you wouldn't be calling this person by mistake in the future. Once they have said, do not call me ever again, you got to honor that request, even if this person is not on the national do not call list. This is what we call the internal do not call list. All right, I already talked about 3 and 4. Okay, and now let's move on to the next one. How to win friends and influence people. Rule number 8, talk in terms of the other person's interest. You can't really go wrong with that. And so that's why before you go see your prospect or before you talk to your prospect, if possible, if you know what the other person's interest is, but if you're there with a purpose, and you know, I get in my WeChat, I get a lot of requests from students that simply want the model test questions, and the first thing that come out of their mouth is, "Okay, do you have any model questions for me?" Okay, I think if they were smarter, they probably would want to engage me in some conversation on some topics that interest me. But that's up to them to find out exactly what interests me. It's up to them to find out. They can find out from my Facebook, although these days I don't post too much on my Facebook. But if this person wants to talk to me about cooking or flying that might interest me because I do have such interest. So always talk in terms of the other person's interest, even the other person's secretary. You see, some people use a secretary to screen their calls or to block any solicitation. So if you can find out what their assistants' interests are, talk to their assistants about their interests, and they might if you start talking about their interests, then they might engage in a more lengthy conversation with you, and they want to know more about you. So vice versa. So if you want something from somebody, you must first engage in conversation that interests them. Talk about their interests. If they like to golf, talk about golf. If you are a golfer, don't try to talk about golf if you're not a golfer, because or another trick would be that even if you're not a golfer, you can make the other person talk about golf. For example, you might ask the person, "Oh, I once was interested in golf, but I realized I was not a fast learner. When did you start picking up golf? You know, can you share with me some of the tips on how to become a good golfer?" Well, then you can start talking about golf because you're not a golfer, right? Or you can start talking about, if that person's interest is in fishing, you can start talking about fishing. If you ever fished before, you can talk about that person's, something that they are very proud of in terms of their accomplishments. You can't go wrong, because if you want the other person to express an interest in you, sometimes you can get the very thing that you want from that person just by making the person talk in terms of the other person's interest. All right. So let's move on to the last topic of, well, actually, before I move on, I want to share with you, uh, if I if I make prospecting calls, sometimes it is helpful to find out more about the other person. Although usually when you make cold calls, you know very little about that person until or unless the person is willing to volunteer the information. So one of the questions we usually ask is, uh, if you sold this home, where are you moving next, right? And then the person might say, "Oh, I'm moving to Boston." Then my standard response, "Oh, how exciting! Moving to Boston. What's taking you to Boston?" Okay, now you start making the person talk about Boston, right? The person might be talking about, "Well, my grandchildren are there." Oh, wow. Okay, then you start having conversation. Then you get to know more about this person. The person might say, "I'm moving to Phoenix, or I'm retiring in Phoenix." Oh, why Phoenix? Gotta make the person talk about his interests. Okay. All right. Next. The royal road to a person's heart is to talk about the things he or she treasures most. This is a direct quote from the book. The royal road. Okay. Oh, did I miss opportunity zone? I think I may have missed that one. Okay, that's all right. I'm just going to talk about opportunity zone. Where did I put that one? Okay, I think I might have deleted that, but that's okay. Opportunity zone. I mentioned to you, uh, it is a countervailing measure to Biden's tax reform. As you know, the Biden is going to either get rid of 1031 exchange or severely limit 1031 exchange to no more than 500,000 tax capital gain that you can defer in a given year. Okay. Now, what happened to the excess that you can't defer? You can think about opportunity zone. And why do we want opportunity zone? Uh, because it has certain benefits. that 1031 exchange does not allow. For example, a 1031 exchange does not allow you to exchange for less money. Whereas opportunity zone, there is no such limitation. So let's say, for example, you just sold a property worth $1 million, right? Now, if there is anything that you can't defer by 1031 exchange, you can actually invest in qualified opportunity zone and get that deferred. The only disadvantage is that it's going to get deferred until December 31st, 2026, because that's when opportunity zone tax law will sunset. But nobody says it will never get extended. What if they decide to get it to have it extended? Then it can be deferred for an extended period. Otherwise, it will sunset on December 31st, 2026. But some tax deferment is better than no tax deferment at all. And there's another thing that Biden is getting rid of is what we call the step-up basis. For those of you that forgot, step-up basis means that uh, upon the death of the taxpayer, the beneficiary or the heirs will receive the property with a higher tax basis. The tax basis will be equal to the market value of the property on the day the taxpayer died. So that's what we mean by this step-up basis. Now, step-up basis, it's good because huge tax benefit for the heirs or beneficiary through proper estate tax planning. But Biden is thinking about getting rid of that. Now, if Biden gets rid of that, the opportunity zone offers you some step-up basis, although not a whole lot, but something is better than nothing, right? So that one says if you invest in qualified opportunity zone for 5 years or more, you may get some step-up basis. Not a whole lot, maybe 10 to 15%. I can't really remember how long you have to hold the investment in the opportunity zone for, but it is certainly a opportunity for you to defer to pay less capital gain taxes. And there's another tax benefit for opportunity zone. That one has to do with the new gain, the income on the that you derive on your investment in the opportunity zone. That one is not tax. It's not taxable. So you may have some additional tax benefit by not having to pay any income taxes on uh, the income that you derive from opportunity zone. I'm not 100% clear on that, but that's something for you to check with your CPA. As you know, I'm not a CPA. Okay. All right, that's pretty much all I'm going to share with you today. I heard you learned something today. And next Tuesday, it will be evening at 8:30 p.m. We'll have our Southern California market update for the month of August 2021. Okay, until then, I will see you guys next Tuesday. Have a nice weekend.